Beyond the Barracks of the Coaches Show program here for 2024, and actually the inaugural edition with the branding of Beyond the Barracks. And we come your way live tonight from Over the Horizon Brewing right here in Charleston. You know, they had their grand opening here yesterday, man. You talk about timing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that is the voice of one Maurice Drayton, the head football coach at the Citadel, and of course on everybody's mind this week, opening week, Saturday night. We'll, of course, get more specific into that game a little bit later, but, man, there's always such a renewed and charged-up energy around the beginning of the season, is there not?
It is, and I tell you, I never want to fast-forward my life, but when the last seconds ticked off the clock of our last game, I couldn't wait for this moment. So we're very excited and very energetic and ready to get going.
Well, this is year 2 for you, and obviously you guys have really just wrapped up camp, and now you're in game week practices. When you look back over this camp, what are your thoughts generally on it? We'll get into some specifics as we go along.
Well, the general thought is the guys have done a really good job. It was all about mindset in camp. Our strength coach, who we'll visit with here real soon, he and his staff has done an excellent job. So because their bodies were prepared, we got a chance to focus on their minds, football IQ and the how and why we do things. So we're just excited to show this off.
Isn't it amazing as technical and as detailed and as analytically driven and all that stuff as football is, still comes down to blocking and tackling and executing fundamental stuff, doesn't it?
Every day of the week it does. You know the old saying, it's not about the X's and O's, but it's about those Billies and Joes.
Right. And it's always it's never who you play, it's how you play.
Absolutely. This camp, we really spent a lot of time on what I call FBIs, football intelligence. We did a lot of situational work. We put ourselves in situations that force the coaches to have to make decisions on the fly, as well as the players, and as well as myself. Proper usage of timeouts, when to take delays, when to do various things that could be advantageous to us in a win.
By the way, we are at Over the Horizon Brewing. We're at 2200 Harriet Street here in Charleston, and they, of course, just had their grand opening yesterday. Been open for a little bit, but great place to hang out. And we'll be here every Monday for the most part. A couple other stops along the way during football season, but we'll largely be here just about week in and week out doing Beyond the Barracks. Let's talk a little bit about your roster. In this day and age, rosters turn over so much now, and while yours hasn't turned over as dramatically as some maybe at the bigger or higher levels do, obviously it turned over some, and some of the acquisitions. The biggest name in all of them, the guy that's gotten most of the press in all this, is Jonathan Bennett. This is a guy that not only brings a great skill set to your program, but as important, or more important perhaps, a leadership component.
Absolutely. I can't talk enough about Jonathan. He has experienced the locker room at a high level. He has participated and won at a high level. What he brings to our locker room, you can't put a barometer on that. He's like a coach on the field, but it's more than just on the football field. It's in the locker room, talking to guys about nutrition, talking to guys about, hey, when you do get general leave and you leave the battalion, as much as you want to go left, you got to go right and do the right thing. That's where his strengths lie.
And as much as you return a lot of guys and they're a year older and a year further developed along the way, still you're a relatively young roster. And we talked a lot about this last year, and you need a handful of guys that are really going to help lead those guys as coaches on the field. Absolutely.
We are a young roster, and even where we're not young by age or by degree work, we're young in experience. I told this stat earlier today, and people looked at me in awe. We played 29 players last season, 29, who did not start at their high school program or didn't even play high school football. Wow. So that says a lot. And to speak to the youth, we had 16 freshmen, 16 true freshmen, redshirt freshmen from week 7 on to either start or have significant playing time. So we are young, but we now have gained some experience with those guys.
And with those returners obviously comes hunger. I mean, this is a situation where you did have a tough year last year. It got better as the season went on, but still a lot of times you guys were your own undoing, and it really starts with that part of it.
Absolutely. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. I told this to the team last night as well too. We did such a great job in the off season with our strength program. These guys have changed their bodies. They like looking in the mirror now because they see this mask that we were able to put on them. They like the attaboys. They like being patted on the backside saying, hey, you guys look good. We're going to be better. But the truth of the matter is this. I practiced yesterday. I had to get after their fannies a little bit. It wasn't to the standard that we need on game week. So I gave them a quick story by Walter H. Mazik. And basically he talks about members versus men. We will take 8 men thoroughly immersed in the true Bulldog experience over 80 men any day with lukewarm enthusiasm. And so to your point about enthusiasm and excitement, that's what we have to bring to the table every day.
One of the things as we sit here, and of course this is going to be the inaugural Low Country Boil Bowl coming up this Saturday up at Charleston Southern. We sit here and look at the trophy. Can you speak a little to how conceptually all that kind of came together? And it's a great idea. You're 2 FCS programs. You're right here in the same city. Why not?
Absolutely. So I called Coach Gardenia, Gabe, and said, hey, we're right up the road. These schools have played a good bit. Let's play for something. One of the things I want to do with our season, and truth of the matter is I got this from another coach, I want to make each game means something beyond the game. We want to play for something. We want to win something. We do a lot in our program as far as talking about winning and losing. And so when we called Gabe loved the idea. We took it to our ADs. Our ADs then put us in contact with our SIDs, and they came up with the concept. And I tell you what, I like it. I love it.
No doubt. One of the other things that's cool about it is the joint community service component of that, where your players, their players, kind of work together to do some things around the community.
Yeah, definitely. Community service, so we are all about that. It was so good. We got the opportunity to go over to MUSC, to their pavilion, where we got a chance to hang out with a bunch of kids who don't have it as good as we do. And what we did, we painted shoes, shoes that we're going to wear October 5th, I believe, at our Furman game. And then post-game, we're going to auction those shoes off, and the money that we get, we're going to donate it right back into that pavilion. We got to get those guys some up-to-date, like Xbox and whatever the kids are into today versus just the board games.
And this will be an annual thing where you'll play each other every year, and this will be for this trophy, and that's how this will go. Well,
I don't know that the game will be annual every year, but both coaches, both staffs, we want to play each other annually, but we've scheduled out in advance, so we may have to skip a year here and there until we can get the schedule going.
And schedules are made obviously a few years in advance. Coming up, Joe Varga, the strength and conditioning coach, will join us, and before we get there, and that'll be on the other side of a break, I could talk a little bit about strength and conditioning, because obviously that's really a year-round thing now. There's a little bit of heal-up time at the end of the season, but then they get after it and get going, and that's where they get bigger and stronger and all those things. But gone are the days where camp is like 3 a days and taking salt tablets. Maybe you don't go back that far, but I do.
I definitely go back. I go back to those days. We can't do that now, nor do we want to. I'm big into the science of football, so we study this. We study nutrition. I have a degree work in health and physical education, so I've always been passionate about it. So I just can't wait for Joe to get on. Let me tell you something. He's a rock star. What we've been able to do, I wish I had some images to show some before and after pictures. We literally ate weights every chance we got. We were moving iron.
And the hope, of course, is that beginning next Saturday, that'll start to pay dividends on the field in these head-to-head games. Before we jump out to a break, strength and conditioning itself, as you just alluded to, has really become just part and parcel of the whole sports science thing between, agility drills, nutrition, as you alluded to, even the way you manage your life, sleep-wise, all those kinds of – it really all goes into it. It's a comprehensive approach that didn't happen before.
Absolutely. It's all-encompassing. And without it – we would not be able to keep up with our opponents. So it's very, very, very important. I can't wait for him to introduce talk about his staff and our process. I don't want to steal his thunder,
Right.
but I get excited when I talk about what we did and what we were able to do. It wasn't for the faint of heart, and the way we trained, it was in a lot of different dynamics, not just the weights, but some of the other things that we did, and we're going to let him talk about it. But my favorite sport is not football, and we trained in that sport as well, too. I'll let him talk about that.
Yeah, it's a funny thing over the years, before we go to a break here. Strength and conditioning coaches, it doesn't get talked about a lot, but they're also critical motivators, because these guys are motivators the whole year round. I can tell you that some of the loudest, most vocal, best speeches, pregame speeches I ever heard were from strength and conditioning coaches.
Absolutely. I remember the first $1 million strength coach, a guy, he goes by the nickname of Mad Dog. He was at the University of North Carolina. Mac Brown took him to Texas, and he was the first strength coach to get a $1 million deal a year. And if I'm not mistaken, he's an athletic director there now, one of their athletic directors. And that's when the game of strength and conditioning started changing, and I'm just so excited that it is, because they deserve it. They spend more time with our athletes than the coaches do, and it's by NCAA rule, which are accountable hours.
This is Beyond the Barracks. We are live at Over the Horizon Brewing here in downtown. We're really right off I-26 at 2200 Harriet Street. Come on by. 6 to 7, we'll do this on Mondays. Talking about strength and conditioning coaches, one of the best ones I ever was around was a guy who worked here, and I worked with him later at Kennesaw State. I think he's at Navy now, Jim Carizzi.
Yeah,
Coach
Christie.
K.
Yeah, I know him very well. In my second stint when I was the defensive coordinator, he was transitioning either in or out when I was leaving, but man, he's a rock star.
Yeah, no doubt.
Energy.
And he is definitely a guy who brings it. Right here, we will step aside and take a timeout. On the other side, we won't steal Joe Varga's thunder, because he'll come up and join us, the strength and conditioning coach here at the Citadel. We're with Maurice Drayton, and we are with all of you on radio. Hey, we encourage you to come down here for this every Monday, 6 to 7. Beyond the Barracks, live at Over the Horizon Brewing. And we're back with more of it right after this on the Citadel Bulldogs Radio Network. Giffen, the radio voice of the Citadel, and we're joined now by Joe Varga, the strength and conditioning coach of the Bulldogs. And this is kind of obviously, Coach Drayton and I talked a few minutes ago. This is a year-round proposition for you. You're coaching from the word go, and you just coach. What are your thoughts on things as we sit here on the eve of the first game?
I mean, to back up onto what you just said, the off-season is definitely a relentless time of year for any strength coach. But myself, my staff, we, like you said, we get started right there in the beginning of January, and it doesn't stop all until camp. And then once preseason starts, we're still going. So it's a year-round thing for us.
Coach and I talked about it, but we can't really shed the light on it that you can. I'd love to get your thoughts on kind of the melding and how all of this has really become more about sports science than it is. Right. It's really all different facets. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So you're touching on a pretty multifaceted point. So it's not just coming down from the percentages, the reps, the sets. We're talking about nutrition. We're talking about sleep. We're talking about stress management. That's really probably the biggest part I believe a strength coach needs to really dive into is how we manage their stress, because there's things going on in their personal life, school life, especially as a cadet at the Citadel. And then we still have to apply our stress to get those gains, get the size, get the speed, the conditioning, all aspects that we cover. It really comes down to us managing our stress, pushing them when we can push, backing off when we need to back off, and kind of staying within that realm.
Over the years that you've done this, can you speak a little to the progression of that? And technology and, all the different things that go into this. It's really been an evolving process over the years, and you've been doing this a while.
Absolutely. I'm a little bit old school in my style. I believe that the people that started this profession, they had to figure it out from the beginning. Now there's been a ton of technology from different ways to measure speed, velocity, to measure heart rate, to just get all types of feedback on the technology standpoint. Those things are absolutely vital, and we incorporate those as well. But I believe that it's a healthy balance between what it started off as and then where we're going to now in the future.
One of the things that has stood out watching the scrimmages and kind of being around camp the last 3-4 weeks or so is there does appear to be a really good hunger among these guys. And I wonder if that translated as early as January, when they got in there after a tough season, needless to say, the holidays go by, all that stuff, then it was all full go.
Yeah, we did not let them sit around and lick their wounds. We got back first day of classes, we had a team meeting, we set the tone right there. We told them what we were going to expect. We laid out the plan. And then we got right to it the very next day. It was from the word go, we were pushing the mentality and the mindset, nutrition, all the things that go along with the off-season training.
Coach and I were talking a little bit about strength coaches and stuff we've been around over the years. Is there, for you as a guy who does this, is there kind of a Mount Rushmore, 3 or 4 guys that stand out that really are pioneers in this that you look up to?
Yeah, I've tried about 5. So I got my number one mentor, who's Jeff Oliver, the College of Holy Cross in Worcester, Mass. You got Joe Ken, who's referred to as Big House. You got Donald Boucher, who brought me into the Citadel as a youngster. He's the one that gave me my start as a GA here at the Citadel. And then he brought me back 2020, and then when he went off, he gave me an opportunity to take the next step. So those 3 are definitely the big ones. And then you got to look at guys, that are at the next level. Like Coach has put me onto a lot of guys in the NFL. They've given me a ton of advice and insight to the way Coach wants to run the program and some things that could help us out.
Any season is a grind, and one of the things I discovered last year in my first year here is this SoCon, I think, is in particular a grind, and that's where late in these games, particularly late in the season, that's where all that work you guys are doing is going to tell the story and make the difference, hopefully.
Absolutely. I believe in the work. So for us, it's we're training them to prepare their bodies, their mind, but we're also teaching them to work at a certain level, a certain tempo, and we really refer to that as our Bulldog DNA. So we want to be able to outwork people, outpace people. We want to get into their face every play as the game goes on. And as you said, when we get to the fourth quarter, we want to still be pests and still be getting into, the assignments that we need to be getting into.
You've got a substantial number of grad student level players on the roster. I think it's 28 of them.
Right.
How much do those guys, when all this gets underway, way back, spring and before, how much do those guys help lead in what it is you're doing?
It's been great. I mean, there's every guy that we've brought into our program has stepped right in, and it's been seamless. I mean, you got Jonathan Bennett, who's been a great addition. You got Garrison, who came in as a running back, and then each guy, I can go down the list, each guy has come in and really made an impact on what we've done, not just from an off-season standpoint, but here early on in camp and as we go into the first week.
By the way, before I get too far off it, I want to mention this. I got a note from the Citadel Football Association. The Jam the Jeep Back to School Drive with their Veteran Student Success Center and E.B. Ellington Elementary School for the first home football game. People can bring donations to the ticket office at McAllister Fieldhouse or at the game to be displayed in the Jeep. And that's a cool thing. Obviously, that's something that we encourage people to participate in. So here it is, game week. Now Saturday night, it's kind of full go time. Does it change? I mean, you've really done a lot of your work. Now it's day-to-day maintenance to get guys ready to go for Saturday night, huh?
Yeah, so we actually have we just came off a Sunday, so our game week started on Sunday with our lifts, and then we went right into practice. We'll have a second lift tomorrow, and then we get a third lift on Thursday. So we start off heavy on that Sunday. We go explosive on Tuesday, and then we get our upper body strength.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, you've been at this a while, too. Isn't it amazing how the game has just changed over the last several years in terms of how rosters turn over and how many guys come and go?
Yeah. I think that's been the one nice thing about our program is we really haven't lost too many guys. And the guys that we have added in have been great additions, and they fell right into our system, our standard. They've been great workers since day one. And
it really adds a lot of longer-term value to what it is you're doing because you're building these guys not just to succeed this year, but in an ideal world, you're building them wherever they go, but ideally here to succeed beyond, too.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's one of the biggest things that I try to preach to our guys is the principles that we're teaching you in the weight room. When you're fatigued in here, how you respond, or if you hit adversity throughout a training session, how you respond during those moments isn't just preparing you for the game of football, but it's preparing for the game of life. And
I'd love to get your thoughts on how technology helps with what it is that you do. I mean, because nowadays you can measure just about anything, and there are programs for this. How much does technology serve you?
I like to stay in the middle. I think some people will go too far to one end of the spectrum, where some guys won't use it at all. Some guys will just rely on it solely. I like to fall right in that middle space where it's definitely a tool. We're definitely going to use it. We have used it. But we don't rely on it. So, we'll get a chance to check on some other programs, see what they're doing. We'll get to, highlight and, present our guys and how they're training to the world and get feedback in that sense. But I like to take it as we're going to use it, but we don't rely on it.
It's become a big part of every sport, and what I'm getting at are analytics. And as much as analytics will measure a lot of things like speed and strength and size, obviously, things like that, what it doesn't measure is character and smarts and heart and being a guy who comes up in the clutch.
Yeah. I mean, that's where I think, with Coach Drayton and the staff that he's brought in, the staff that I have just within my strength staff, the job that we do as far as just we're the same people every day. We motivate them the same way every day. We're going to kind of help them come up in that way. So to not just solely rely on that.
The first Low Country Boil Bowl. It is the Bulldogs at Charleston Southern. It's Saturday night. It's a 6 o'clock kickoff up there. And we will be on the air with the Ashley Furniture Home Store pregame show at 5 o'clock from Buccaneer Field as the Bulldogs look to open the 2024 season, hopefully, with a W. We're visiting with Joe Varga, the strength and conditioning coach here at the Citadel, and really appreciate you coming up for one thing. And obviously, we will endeavor to bring you back from time to time to update us on how things are going during the season.
That'd be great.
I'd also love to know, before we jump into a timeout here, last thing for you is how do you guys manage all this now in the course of the season where the bumps and the bruises and all the things get accumulated? It's something you have to pay a lot of attention to.
Well, we'll go into every season with a plan, but knowing that we have to adjust on the fly. So that's where our support staff comes into play. Our athletic trainers will keep us up to date on who might have suffered something the night before. Maybe they can still go, but at a modified work rate. Maybe they can't go at all. So it's really just communicating with our support staff and then kind of reading the room. Like you said, we spend a lot of time with these guys throughout the course of the off season. I get to know their bodies. I get to know when they're up, when they're down, when it's legit, when maybe they're kind of looking for a way out. So when it comes to that Sunday lift after a game, this upcoming Saturday night, we get to Sunday, I'll be able to know who might need to back off a little bit and who I can push.
Right. Coach, it's great to have you here, and hopefully the stuff that you're doing will play a big part. Let's keep that trophy down here at this end of town. What do you think?
Absolutely. It's ours.
Cool trophy. The Low Country Boil Bowl trophy sits here to our right, and we are live at we are live with Beyond the Barracks. We're live at Over the Horizon Brewing here in Charleston, just off Harriet Street, 2200 Harriet Street, right by I-26, pretty easy to get to. And we are back with more. Coach Drayton's going to come back. We're going to set the scene for this game on the other side of this timeout. You're listening to the Citadel Bulldogs Radio Network. Barracks as we wind our way into segment 3 of the weekly Coaches Show. We're live at Over the Horizon Brewing here, 2200 Harriet Street near downtown Charleston. Great to have all of you with us. And Coach Drayton back up here now. And, Coach, it's game week. We talked about that trophy sitting over there. And obviously now the mindset is to work hard every day and get ready to go and go out there and get a W on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. The guys are working hard. We have a big week in front of us, but it's only big because it's the next one. I was talking to someone earlier today, and the question was asked, is this a big game because it's a crosstown rival? Is it a big game because you're going against one of your friends and Coach Gabe? No, it's a big game because it's the next one. And you will hear me say that every week I sit here, the next game is a big game.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your roster. One of the things that you've said a couple of times after these scrimmages during camp here is the fact that you've got depth at a couple of different places. For one, you're 3 deep technically at quarterback and really a little bit deeper than that. You're deep along your fronts a little bit more than you were in the past too, and that's stuff that'll undoubtedly pay dividends.
Absolutely, it'll definitely pay dividends. On the defensive line, that's where I'm really excited. We are 2 deep across the board. The drop-off at FCS is usually what determines, a team from being able to run the table or the team being able to, have a successful season. But on our defensive line, we go 2 deep across the board. Very excited. At the linebacker position, we feel really good. We have what we call a pair and a spare in football. In the secondary, we are a little young, but that's okay. These guys can run, they're athletic, and they have that want-to and that hunger. Now, when I go to the offensive side of the ball and the offensive line, we feel really good about that. Coach Patrick Covington does a great job. We basically have 5 centers. He makes sure everyone knows how to snap a ball. He does a great job there. We feel really good about having a pair and a spare on the offensive line. The tight end position, now listen, this guy is my brother, Danny Lewis.
Right.
We share a brain. We complete each other's thoughts. Sometimes I wonder if his wife wonders if something's going on because we think that much alike. I'm serious. We've been friends for a long time. I can't say enough about Coach Danny. He's a true rock star. I love he and his family to death.
We talk about depth, and you're kind of sitting here kind of scribbling around a little bit on your notes as we get ready for this game. But were there guys that surprised you in the course of camp that maybe fought their way and earned their way into more prominent roles? That's always one of the fun things to watch.
Yeah, definitely. We had several guys that surprised me during camp. Let's talk about the running back position. Number 42, Corey Ibrahim. He has done a phenomenal job. He's quiet. He doesn't say much. He does a great job in the classroom. He did a great job in the spring, and it transferred into the summer. I'm very pleased with him. Also, a position change. We were talking about Danny Lewis earlier. He decided to take Saul Diaz. Saul played linebacker for us, and now he's our starting tight end. Really like the way he's progressed. I could go on and on. I'm just excited about what we're doing.
Do you feel, one of the things last year, I think, where you guys are really beginning this transition now with this offense where you're going to open it up more and still run it off of option concepts. Now you've got a year under your belt doing it. Now you've got another camp under your belt, and you've restocked on talent as well. And I'd love to get your thoughts on how much better prepared you feel like you might be to open the season with a little bit more, of a regular time to plan and schedule and all that stuff.
Well, we're definitely we're better prepared. From the standpoint of running, our offense that is not under center.
Right.
We had to teach our offensive linemen how to pass protect. If you would have been at our first practice, the first forward pass we threw, if you would have watched the human being that tried to catch a pass, oh my goodness, it was actually embarrassing. It was like, hey, we didn't have the forward pass in our arsenal.
Right.
So I think some people didn't realize, what this transition would look like. talking about going from under center triple option, the rules changed. It's no more cut block and
Right.
things of that nature. It made it very difficult for schools like us to transition into what we call modern football.
Right, and what happens too is you have a roster largely comprised of guys that are really built to play that way and have been schooled to play that way through their college career before you got here. So now you have another year of working your way away from it. You talked about the defensive backs. A couple names that I got here. Will Pickering, for one, is a guy that you've really liked in camp. Can you talk a little about him?
Yeah, definitely. Will is a graduate in our graduate program. He's going to get his MBA, a sharp, smart young man, but he's a local product. He's out of Wando High School. And let me tell you something. He played NIA ball, Division III ball, decided he wanted to get his master's at the Citadel, and lo and behold, this guy's pretty darn good at football, and he wants to play football, and we were able to get him out, and I'm very, very excited about what he's going to do. He's actually going to be one of our starters, and I think it works out very well. In addition, I noticed on your cheat sheet right there, Evan Bird. Evan is a special product to me, and let me tell you why. He is a true walk-on that is in our graduate school, our graduate program. He's not on scholarship.
Right.
He pays his own money to go to school because he wants to better himself, create a career for himself, but he happens to have a skill set of playing football, and he's worked his way up from the bottom to now be a starter for us. So really encouraged with Evan. He actually, believe it or not, he had these braids all the way down to his shoulders.
Yep.
And we were able to cut a deal with him when we talked about, hey, listen, in order to play for us, you got to embrace the military side.
Right.
So we took time together and we talked about the military aspect, and we set a policy in place back in the spring.
Right.
Where we wanted to make sure he understood who we are, what we are, and how we work, which would lead me into the next guy I see on your pad,
Right.
Jaleel Lafitte. So when I coached at the Green Bay Packers, I had the opportunity to work with a guy named Jason Simmons. He is now the pass game coordinator for the Washington Commanders. He sends me a film on Jaleel, and he says, hey, you really need to take a look at this guy. Jason played his college ball out in Arizona, A-State, and he's met a lot of people, and someone sent him some film, and he said, I'm only sending it to one place. So he sent it to us, and Jaleel, I'm so proud of him. He already has a master's degree.
Wow.
So now he's working on a second master's, and we're very excited about who he is. He's another one that had dreadlocks all the way down to his butt.
Yeah.
But we were able to cut a deal early on in the process with him because we established our own policy about embracing the military, understanding who we are,
Right.
realizing you're in Charleston, South Carolina. And he did a fabulous job. He said, you know what, Coach, I believe in you. I believe in the program. I'll do it. Cut it off, and I tell you what, he has earned his way to be a starter. None of these guys who have transferred in was given anything. They had to earn it.
Right, and as much as things change and things evolve, and we're in this modern time and all that, two things that just don't go together typically are braids and the Citadel. So that's just one of those things. But great stuff, Coach. Obviously, last thing for you here, you and I will get together later in the week and visit prior to the game now. But what are your thoughts on Southern generally? You obviously know Coach Gabe quite well. What are your thoughts on their roster, and what challenges will they represent?
Yes, Coach Gabe is an outstanding coach. He's going into his second season as the head coach at Charleston Southern, but he's in his third stint, much like myself. I'm in my third stint at the Citadel. Now, as a head coach, when Gabe was at Albany State, he went 37-7. His last two seasons, he was 17-5. He won a conference championship in 21. His defense led the country in 21 as well. When he was the OC at Charleston Southern, he won 36 games in 4 years. Made the playoffs in 15. Made the playoffs in 16. They won the conference in 16. Let me tell you something. This guy is he's a great coach. But not only that, he had the opportunity to sit at the footsteps of Nick Saban. He was a graduate assistant at Alabama. So let me tell you something. We have our hands full when it comes to the jockeying of the X's and O's and things of that nature.
Well, it's going to be interesting. That's a 6 o'clock kickoff. The Citadel at Charleston Southern. That'll be at Buccaneer Field. So the first Low Country Boil Bowl will be one on the road. And obviously, the last thing I got for you, I just got every game matters. Every game is the most important game. But this one would be a huge lift just from the standpoint of getting off to a great start and setting a nice tempo for a good year.
It would be. But we're not going to put all our eggs in this
Right.
one game. Anytime you do that as a coach, I believe that can let you down. It could actually ruin your season early on. I'm just thankful for the opportunity. We're going to take the field to play with Charleston Southern. Very, very thankful for Over the Horizon and what they're doing. As you look, we have Moe's Ginger Ale.
Yeah, I was going to
And
say, we had to get that.
Absolutely. For every Moe's Ginger Ale you purchase here, $1 goes directly back into our program. And I can't say thank you enough to our guys who put that in play. I don't want to start naming names. You might get in trouble. But we're just very, very thankful to those guys. They are outstanding.
Needless to say, you're popular around here. They've already named a beer after you.
Well, I tell you what, they love their alma mater. I love our alma mater. And we just want to see us, rise to the top where we know we can be.
Coach, appreciate it. Obviously, have a good rest of the week. We'll look forward to seeing you later in the week, and let's put it all together and go get one Saturday.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. We got a real treat coming up next.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
All
we're
right.
going to talk volleyball next as Dave Zelenak is going to come over, the head volleyball coach at the Citadel. He'll come over and hang out. They had a great season last year, too.
Absolutely.
Got a chance to watch them a lot, prepping for basketball games, too. That's one of the beautiful things about, being in the field house when they're down there practicing. I get to see some. I got to see a couple of games, too. We will come back with Coach Zelenak on the other side of this break. That is Maurice Drayton. I'm Brian Giffen, and this is Beyond the Barracks. We are live at Over the Horizon Brewing here near downtown Charleston, 2200 Harriet Street. Back with more after this. You're listening to the Citadel Bulldogs Radio Network. We are live at Over the Horizon Brewing here near downtown Charleston at 2200 Harriet Street, I should say. Also want to point out again, we talked about this a little bit earlier. The Citadel Football Association sent me a note today. They're doing a Jam the Jeep Back to School drive with their Veteran Student Success Center and E.B. Ellington Elementary School for the first home football game. People can bring donations to the ticket office at McAllister Fieldhouse or at the game, and it'll all be displayed in the Jeep, which is pretty cool and a good cause. Our guest now is the volleyball coach at the Citadel, Dave Zelnock. And so you're in your 7th year, and now you're going to be around a while. Just signed a new extension, too. Congrats.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And obviously you guys come off of what was a fantastic year last fall. What are your thoughts when you look back at the season that you had?
It's never really our goal to win a regular season. I've always kind of sold it as we're trying to win the tournament because that's what gets us in the NCAA tournament. So we never put a lot of emphasis on that day-to-day consistency of having to win every game, that pressure, and they kind of took that on their own. Like the team decided they wanted to do this. So, once it got to 10, 11, 12, and 0, and I was like, I should probably pay attention and address this. But, it was definitely a thing. We got a lot of opportunities out of that. We got a lot of recruits out of that, and it was a really good thing for our program and the school, I think.
How do you build on such a good season? And obviously rosters change, every year, every sport, but how do you build on such a really, really good season here last year?
I think, you up the level that you're playing in your pre-conference. We're playing a pretty tough pre-conference season, and then you just try and be consistent and prove it's not a fluke, that we're not just a flash-in-the-pan program.
It's interesting, the synergy, I think, between programs at the Citadel. Maurice was just telling me a couple of minutes ago that he's got to be on his P's and Q's because if it starts to rain and he needs that gym, he's got to come talk to you and Ed. Yeah,
it's a shared facility, so it's the only place the whole corps can go to. So there's a lot of times in our preseason that we're over in Days Hall because General wants to talk, so that's fine.
What are some of your thoughts as you look back at such a good season? And obviously, again, rosters turn over. I think you told me during the break that you moved on something like 5 players. Mm-hmm. So, in effect, like every sport, you're kind of retooling and working with what you got now.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is we keep a lot. So, we bring back Allie, who's player of the year on the outside. Belle was setter of the year. Jalen was libero of the year. So those players are all back for another year with us. So we keep both outsides there, our setter, our libero. Where we needed to plug the holes were the middle and the right side. And we think we got some pretty good kids in there.
I think it's an under-talked about word sometimes, but one of the key things I think in any sport and in terms of long-term or sustained success is culture. Mm-hmm. You try to build a culture in your program that even though the names and numbers change and the people change year in and year out, the culture doesn't. How would you define the culture that you've tried to build over the 7 years and now, of course, for 4 more?
So we talk about being player-led quite a bit. I went to Central Michigan University. That's my school. I love my school. And 30 years.
That's the Chippewa.
That's right. Yeah. My degree's always going to be from there, but this is their school and they need to be proud of it. So they need to make sure that they have a standard for the program that they're going to uphold because it means a lot more when it comes from the team than it comes from a coach. A ball falls and I yell at everyone, then I'm kind of the jerk. But I didn't do anything. I'm just holding you accountable. So we make the players do it to themselves and each other, and it's a process getting there. But luckily, we're at the Citadel where they're kind of used to a 19-year-old leading an 18-year-old.
Right.
So it's gone okay. There's always going to be some bumps that we got to adjust, but they do a nice job with it.
And your schedule is coming in the not too distant future too. What are your thoughts as you look at the schedule? Some of the things that stand out to you.
There's no guaranteed wins on this schedule. We're going to Alabama week 1, Nebraska week 2, Troy and Kennesaw, Jacksonville. There's just no one on there that I'm like, all right, that's one we can count on.
Right.
It's going to
no
be
gimmies.
It's going to be rough. Where in years past we definitely scheduled, some of those just to get our confidence up. But I like to schedule as tough as morale can handle, and this is a pretty veteran group that understands sometimes a loss is okay if it's against the right team.
Until I got here last year, obviously I was very familiar with the SoCon, having been when I was at Kennesaw State, we played a number of different SoCon teams, but I didn't understand how tough the conference was in terms of a grind, and I would assume it's exactly the same in volleyball. It was in basketball, it was in baseball, and it certainly is in football, so I would assume volleyball's no different.
Yeah, we're, a lot of back-to-backs, which is different than obviously basketball and football. So we have a few this year where it's, we'll play Thursday and Saturday. Most of the time we're playing at 7 o'clock at night and the next day at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
And that's really tough to turn around. after their bodies went through a 5-set match that takes 2.5 hours, and then you got to do it again under 24 hours. So it's pretty rough.
Recruiting an athlete to the Citadel is always a little bit different than it is most places because you add in the cadet and the military component. In other words, and Coach Drayton, I think, put it really well, it takes a certain kind of kid to want to come and further their athletic career at the Citadel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously we all want the kids who touch 10 feet and can hit the ball 70 miles an hour, but we really focus on the kid and if they're going to be successful at the Citadel in all of that, and are they going to be okay with 5 hours of sleep and, in their freshman year being a really rough experience sometimes. So we focus on making sure that we get the right kids so I don't have to re-recruit in a year. We don't really lose a lot of kids. And that they're going to grow as they are here. It's not a kid we don't get a lot of freshmen who just pop off their first year and are stars. We've had that, but most of the time our kids have to grow up in the program a little bit.
Do you have a couple of players or a couple of names that come to mind that you really expect to take pretty good size jumps forward this year?
With that hole in the middle, Sam Barnes and Perry really have to fill in for that. We've got to kind of figure out who's going to lead the charge there because we're replacing, Matt Cardenas, who's playing professional right now. And,
right.
It's a big shoes to fill, so we're hoping one of our kids, but we also brought in a transfer. So between them, someone will take care of it.
Well, Citadel volleyball is coming up before you know it also. As we sit here, talking about football for this Saturday, but fall sports about to crank up fully, and the school year is about to get going.
Yeah, they're already in school. I'm already here, and this professor wants me to do this and that. We've got to shift some things around to make sure kids are being successful. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting time for our SIDs and our administration and everyone because it's a lot right now.
Yeah, no doubt. And the rubber has kind of officially met the road now for the 2024-2025 school year. Dave, I really appreciate you coming over. That is Dave Zelnock, the volleyball coach here at the Citadel. Anything else you want us to know before we jump out here?
I think, people should probably come out and see our games. They don't charge, which is great.
Right.
And most of the time when people come out and they watch the style that we play, it's pretty fast and aggressive and entertaining. And win or lose, we do tend to put on a pretty good show and people want to come back.
And I can speak to that from numerous times, setting up equipment to broadcast a basketball game at night, watching in the afternoon, be it practice or games. And very, very athletic, great sport. Well, we really appreciate you coming over and hanging out with us, and obviously have a great season. We'll look forward to having you back, too. This is a coach's show, so we get to bring you back, right?
Yeah, maybe we'll win another championship and we'll get a beer, a volleyball beer up there.
Yeah, we don't have one named for you yet, but we'll
work on that.
All right. That is Dave Zelnock, the volleyball coach here at the Citadel, as we wind up and wrap up Beyond the Barracks, the very first one. We are live at Over the Horizon Brewing. And I want to say thanks to all you guys who have come out here. You guys have been fantastic. It's great to have you here. And we look forward to doing this every week also. One more reminder to lock in the game this Saturday. The Bulldogs take on Charleston Southern up at Buccaneer Field. It is the first in the Low Country Boyle Bowl rivalry. And that big old trophy right there, we got to do everything in our power to try to keep that in this end of town. But that'll about do it for us. I want to say thanks to Anderson Dreyer, who ran us on the studio end. I want to say thanks to all the Citadel folks who came out and assisted us to get all this going. Thanks to Coach Drayton, of course. Thanks to Coach Varga. And also to you, Dave Zelnock, for hanging out with us. That'll do it, and we will talk to you Saturday, everybody, when the Bulldogs take on Charleston Southern. So long.